This picture is a picture of a corner of my personal space in my home in Arizona. And if you notice on the ground there, just in the right side of the photograph, there's some of my personal belongings. I'm preparing for a trip. I'm preparing for a trip across the country, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. I've made the same trip several times, going different routes. I've also spent a long life going on the road, either, traveling in my car out to the West Coast to do some surfing, or up north to see the Oregon coast, or and hitchhiking a lot. And while I'm making this trip in a few days, going east, I'm going to chronicle the different stages of it, where I'm going, the people I'll see, the places I stay. By the way, I'm not one of those people that's real comfortable being in a hotel room. The luxury is nice, the pools and the food and all that is really nice. But I'm just as comfortable sleeping in a cabin or sleeping on the ground, sleeping in a tent. So making this journey by myself across the country, I kind of feel like Steinbeck, by the way, travels with Charlie. I just don't have a Charlie with me. I have had before a dog with me, but not this trip. But anyway, in making this trip, I'll be staying in cabins, in small little hamlets and roadside pull-offs and so forth. Very reminiscent of the story in my first novel, my memoir, American Nomad, where I talked about traveling in the late 1950s across the United States. This will be like that, and we'll conjure up a lot of those memories. So each day, I'll do a little video about the day's experience, and I'll share that with you until I get all the way out there. Anyway, I wanted to share one story to get you started on this. I used to hitchhike a lot, and it was during the days when a lot of people hitchhiked. It wasn't a big deal. I hitchhiked from southern New Mexico all the way up to Denver, Colorado, and found my father in a trailer park there and spent a couple days with him. Then I turned around, planning to hitchhike all the way back to southern New Mexico. And I was a few miles outside Santa Fe, New Mexico, on one of these hitchhiking trips. And I came to a small town in the Southwest, in northern New Mexico. I don't remember what the name of the town was, but even if I did, I wasn't going to share it. It was a pretty little town, but it just, like so many New Mexico cities or towns, they just have one main road that goes right through the heart of the town, and then streets branch off left and right. And I was hitchhiking, I was doing this, carrying a small suitcase, and very light thing, and nobody picked me up. Nobody picked me up. I wasn't surprised. I was never angry when they didn't pick me up, but I was hoping, But I walked pretty much the better part of a day through the heart of this town. Cars passing me all the time, all the way through town. I was wearing a big leather jacket that my father had given me. And then at one point, this a truck passed, and these young men in the back of the truck began throwing rocks at me walking along the road. In fact, just as they were approaching from behind me, one of them threw a big rock, that hit me in the shoulder right here. And if it wasn't for that leather jacket, I'm sure I was bruised back there, and my arm was sore for a few days, but had he hit my head, I can only imagine what would have happened. But then I heard somebody inside the cab of the truck as they were going on by, cut it out back there, and they stopped throwing rocks at me. I walked and walked and walked, and it got dark, and I'm walking in the dark along just a straight stretch of New Mexico highway. And I heard, I could see the headlights of cars coming up behind me, coming towards me and coming behind me. And I heard as this one came very slowly up the highway behind me, its lights on me. It was an old pickup truck, and I recognized the sound of that truck. And I heard voices in that truck talking, angry voices. So wisely, I climbed down off the road and went under into a culvert underneath the road. And I lay there waiting for that truck to come up, and it slowly rumbled up right over my head, right above me. And I heard a man's voice say, "He's got to be along here somewhere. We'll find him. We will." And they just ran off all of the ugly things they planned to do to me if they found me. But they were looking for me out there walking on the road. They came back, those guys that threw rocks at me, and they wanted to do more damage. I stayed under that culvert for a long time, long after their truck had driven by a couple of times and then disappeared back into their town. I then came back up on the road, and I waited for the first car coming up behind me, and I knew the sound. It wasn't, or I didn't recognize it was just a car. And so I put out my thumb and it pulled over to pick me up. And I was grateful, not only for the ride, but I was grateful to get away from those guys I think wanted to kill me. And I crawled in. It was an old man. The car smelled of vegetable soup. That's what I remember. It smelled that way. And he had lost his front windshield and replaced it with one that was smaller than what should have been there. So there was about this much gap on the bottom of the windscreen as we drove along the highway at night. Very cold, and air was blowing in under that. He took me into Santa Fe. It was very small then. And he took me to a home and said, go in there. They have a place you can sleep. And I got out with my little suitcase and I walked in. It was very quiet. And I wandered through this house till I came to a large room. And in that room, all over the floor, were these mattresses and people sound asleep, snoring on those mattresses. There must have been 36 people laying on the floor. And I found an empty mattress under a window. I was grateful because I could get the fresh air. And I laid down on that mattress and I laid my head on my suitcase because I didn't want to lose it. Didn't want anybody to come up while I was sleeping and take it from me. So I laid my head on that suitcase and I passed out. I fell sound asleep. When I woke up, the room was filled with sunlight. There were a couple people stacking mattresses against the wall. Nobody else was laying on the floor sleeping. I was the last one laying there. And they were just picking up their mattresses, all of these mattresses, and collecting them up and stacking them over in the corner of the room for the next night. I wandered out into that community of maybe 20, 30 people, and they had me sit at their table and eat. Nobody talked. We prayed together. There was one room I'll never forget. It was just full of paperback books, and there were young people sitting in there reading those books. It was the hippie era, if you can imagine that. It was late 60s, maybe 67, 68. And they were just kind to me. The food they'd gotten from restaurants around town or grocery stores around town that had discarded it, and they cooked up beans and cabbages and things like that. But no one questioned it when I sat down at their table and ate. The only thing I remember after that about that, those couple days that I spent sleeping on that mattress on the floor, was that I had wandered into the Santa Fe proper, into the old plaza next to the Palace of the Governors. And there were artists, and there was an artist that was doing charcoal drawings, portraits of people on butcher paper. And for $2, I had him draw my picture because I wanted to remember what I looked like on that journey. I got back home finally to southern New Mexico, and I gave the picture to a girlfriend, and I haven't seen it since. Anyway, here in a few days, I'm going to take another journey. I'm not planning to hitchhike as long as my car holds up, my pickup truck holds up, but I'm going to travel across the country. I will spend, actually, I'm going to take longer to do it this time. I normally take about 3.5 days. I'm probably going to take 4.5 days and see a couple sites and stuff by myself. But I spend anywhere from 7 to 10 hours a day driving. The first stop will be in Las Cruces, New Mexico, to see an old friend, have a couple beers, and then I'm going to go over the mountain down into the Tularosa Basin, into the valley, and there I will go to the cemetery that holds the graves of all of my family members, visit that. And there are a couple other places that have a personal story for me that I'm going to go to, and maybe I'll share that with you as well. I then will leave Alamogordo the next morning, and I will drive all the way to Elk City, I think, somewhere, Oklahoma, anyway. But each day, I'll share it with you, and I'll show you the little cabins I stay in and everything. All right, this is the first, just to introduce you to the fact that I'm about to take this journey, and I'm going to bring you along with me. All right, guys, have a good day. Bye now.